Our Congresswoman Elise Stefanik has been hard to find since last December. That's when she shocked the political world by ending her brief run for governor and saying she wouldn't run for Congress either. She's made few, if any, public appearances here in the North Country since. But she's out in the headlines again, talking about her new book, Railing Against the Ivies. The Republican on her book and life after politics on today's Story of the Day.
Support for Story of the Day comes from the Wild Center in Tupper Lake, dedicated to strengthening visitors' connections to the natural world. More at wildcenter.org.
Hey, I'm David Sommerstein. It's Monday, April 27th. First up, a lawsuit that had sought to get a Democrat running to represent the North Country in Congress removed from the June primary ballot was dismissed on Friday. 3 voters in New York's 21st Congressional District had alleged that the petitions of Lake Placid businessman Stuart Amaral had included forged signatures. They'd also claimed that witnesses who'd submitted them committed perjury. An Albany County Supreme Court judge granted a motion by Amaral's attorney to dismiss the suit because it wasn't processed in time. Objections to Amaral's petitions were also filed with the State Board of Elections. According to Amaral's campaign, board officials twice found that he has enough valid signatures to remain on the ballot. Elections commissioners are expected to make a final determination tomorrow. Amaral has decried the objections as an effort by party leaders and his opponent, St. Lawrence County farmer Blake Gendebien, to get him off the ballot. Gendebien's campaign has said the voters who filed the objections had legitimate cause. The Democratic primary will take place on June 23rd. The Malone Middle School was on high alert last week after a man was seen inside the school for hours. The incident sparked an evacuation and a full sweep of the school. Emily Russell has details.
Last Wednesday night, just before 9 p.m., a maintenance worker at the Malone Middle School called the police. They said a suspicious man had been walking around the building. He left when a maintenance manager told him to do so, but the situation seemed off, according to police. Local law enforcement reviewed the school's security footage and found that the man had been inside the school for more than 2 hours. According to the school district, the doors had been unlocked for a community event. Local and state police with 2 canine units searched the school and didn't find any sign of a threat. They also found the man at a local motel earlier the next morning, so the school opened as usual. But then, while searching the man's belongings, police say they found sketches that they described as crude. Homeland Security also discovered a possible alias for the man. That prompted the Malone Middle School to be evacuated on Thursday. Another extensive search was conducted, which again found no threat, so the school was cleared and the possible alias was eliminated. Ultimately, police say the man was cleared of any wrongdoing. They said he had been in Malone for work and said he, quote, had nothing to do at the time and wanted to admire the architecture of the building. In a statement posted on Facebook, the school district said the incident prompted a review of its community use procedures. The district said they're now working to strengthen those protocols and add in more safeguards. Emily Russell, North Country Public Radio.
Alcoa is in talks to sell a smelting site in Messina to a Bitcoin mining company. That's according to Alcoa's CEO, Bill Opplinger, who spoke to Bloomberg News earlier this month. He said Alcoa is in negotiations to sell its Messina East site, a 1,300-acre facility along the St. Lawrence River near the bridge to Canada. It's lain dormant since 2014. The site gets electricity from local hydropower on the dam across the St. Lawrence River. That's a draw for digital mining operations, which use enormous amounts of electricity. The potential buyer is NYDIG, a Bitcoin financial services firm. Bloomberg reports the sale will likely go through this summer. North Country Representative Elise Stefanik has kept a low profile since announcing the end of her run for governor and her impending exit from Congress. It's a far cry from the national spotlight the Republican occupied in 2023, when she was in the GOP leadership and her probing of college presidents about anti-Semitism on campuses went viral. Stefanik details that time in her new book, Poisoned Ivies, the inside account of the academic and moral rot at America's elite universities. She's on a national book tour now, signing copies at the Ronald Reagan Library tonight in California. She talked about the book and her future with the New York Public News Network's Jimmy Vielkind. She claims in the book that the nation's top universities have become riddled with anti-Semitism.
The book captures that this was a widespread systemic crisis at a very important moment in time that is the hinge point of having to rebuild higher education. And I also felt that these stories need to be told. I mean, these are horrific stories. Some of this was verbal testimony given in front of Congress, but some of it was, just told to our office as a part of the overall investigation. And those stories need to be heard. They need to be listened to, and they need to be shared broadly to the country as a wake-up call to put forth solutions. I could have just focused on the bad apples. That's why at the end, I focused on the positives of here are models that we could achieve in the long run. But, I would ask readers, how can you as an elected official not be angry when you're hearing these stories? Of course, I am appalled at what these students faced. And these students and parents felt there was nowhere to go except for Congress because these institutions were just not listening. Parents would have to hire security for their children going from one class to another. That should not happen at any campus, let alone in the United States. So yes, it was challenging to write because each of these instances, every hearing was very jaw-dropping, but when you put them in one volume, it is an indictment of what was happening on these universities.
Another way to read this was that, obviously you're going to be a person who has a career opening at the end of this year. I read it as like almost an argument or a pitch as Elise Stefanik, university leader, college leader, or Elise Stefanik, education, regulator of sorts. Is that something that you'd be interested in for your next chapter?
I mean, so it's interesting. When I was first elected as a freshman member, you get to choose you get to prioritize committees you want. I was the only Republican freshman my year who put education in my top two. I put Armed Services and Education Committee. And I think this was a sleeper issue, and I've always cared about education, and I talk about that in this book, and I talk about it in the acknowledgments section where I had amazing teachers, and that changed my life for the better, the quality of education that I had, particularly growing up in K through 12. And I want to continue to be in this space, but that's been a through point in my entire time in Congress. And I point that out because now everybody wants to be on the Education Committee, but there was a tremendous amount of policy work done in this space even prior to this hearing that didn't get a lot of attention, but that was important work in terms of building up to this moment in time for higher ed. So I'm excited about the next chapter, and I know that education will likely be a part of it.
Anything more specific locked down that you can share?
No, I'm not. Everybody asked that, Jimmy, and I'll make those announcements when I'm ready to. But I'm focused on, I have this book coming out, or just tomorrow is a week since it's been published. So I'm in the very beginning of sort of the book tour.
Sure. You have any thoughts on the Smullen-Constantino primaries? Is someone you want to endorse, or any thoughts on how it's playing out?
Nope, not weighing in on that primary. I think the voters are going to decide in the district, and the voters will make their voices heard.
That was outgoing North Country Congresswoman Elise Stefanik speaking with the New York Public News Network's Jimmy Vielkind. So I just want to end today's show by saying thanks and wow. As of right now, NCPR listeners and readers around the North Country and around the country and in Canada and beyond have donated $460,000 to keep public radio going. That's $10,000 more than our spring fundraiser goal. And believe me, we will put all that money and the extra money to good use. Our news department is strong and getting stronger. You make possible all the local coverage you hear every day on Story of the Day. Thanks for believing in us. We're in this together. More news all the time at ncpr.org. Music today by Christopher Watts of Canton and Patricia Julian of Burlington. I'm David Summerstein, North Country Public Radio.